You want to take control over people without saying a word?
There's a reason people underestimate you, why they speak over you, test your boundaries, question your value. It's not because you're weak, it's because you're predictable. You've become too readable, too eager to be understood. You speak when nervous, explain when questioned, defend when challenged. Every word you utter is another card shown, another weapon surrendered. And in a world of wolves, the one who shows their teeth first always loses. You've spent your entire life trying to be heard, speaking up in meetings, sharing thoughts unprompted, rushing to fill silence with sound. Society trained you well. Be expressive, be open, communicate clearly. But Machiavelli saw through this trap centuries ago. The moment you become verbally accessible, you become psychologically predictable. And what's predictable can be controlled, manipulated, dismissed. Look at your own life. How many times were you ignored until you stopped talking? How many times did someone only value your opinion after you withheld it? How many relationships only balanced when you became mysteriously unavailable? That's not coincidence, it's power physics. When you speak, you transfer energy. When you're silent, you force others to spend theirs wondering what you're thinking. Their imagination builds a version of you far more formidable than any self-promotion ever could. This isn't about becoming mute, it's about becoming calculated. Because true power isn't announced with volume, it's felt through absence. The space between your words becomes the territory they fear to enter. Your unreadable expressions become the map they obsess over deciphering. Your withheld reactions become the validation they desperately chase but never fully receive. You show your cards too early, you care too visibly. You try to be liked before being feared. And in a Machiavellian world, being liked without being feared is the same as being ignored. Every explanation you offer is not clarity, it's surrender. Every time you defend your actions, you confirm their power to judge you. Every word beyond necessity doesn't strengthen your position, it dilutes it. The world doesn't fear goodness, it fears mystery. When you speak too freely, you eliminate all mystery. Think of the people you're drawn to, not the open books, but the ones you can't fully decipher. The ones whose thoughts remain partially hidden behind a controlled expression. The ones who respond to questions with questions. The ones who smile slightly when insulted instead of launching into self-defense. They've mastered what you haven't. Psychological leverage through verbal restraint. Most people believe communication builds bridges. Machiavelli knew it builds cages. Watch what happens in your next meeting when someone rambles nervously for 5 minutes. Now watch what happens when someone delivers one precise sentence, then falls silent. Who commands the room? Who makes others lean forward? Who creates tension that demands resolution? The verbose create noise. The silent create gravity that pulls everything toward them. People don't respect what they can predict. And nothing is more predictable than the person who can't stop explaining themselves. You need to be understood is the very lever others use to control you. They know exactly what buttons to push to make you speak, defend, reveal. And once revealed, you become ordinary. Once ordinary, you become replaceable. Once replaceable, you become invisible. The unexplained, however, becomes unforgettable. Machiavelli wrote not to comfort, but to warn. A prince who is not feared will always be vulnerable. It doesn't mean you should become violent. It means you must become unreadable. He observed princes and popes, warlords and merchants, all playing the same psychological game. The loudest voices commanded temporary attention. The calculated silences commanded lasting fear. In a room full of loud people, the one who says nothing is the one everyone watches. Not because they expect a joke, but because they expect something they can't name. That's the goal. To be watched, not for attention, but for precaution. When you're not a threat, you're a tool. When you're feared, even quietly, you become the standard by which others measure themselves. Machiavelli understood that true power isn't about controlling others through force. It's about controlling yourself so completely that others can't predict your next move. The prince who explains his decisions appears weak. The prince who implements without justification appears divine. People don't follow gods because they understand them. They follow because they can't comprehend them. That incomprehensibility becomes worship. That worship becomes power. Look at your own relationships. The people you chase are the ones who reveal the least. The ones you think about most are those who show you glimpses of attention, then withdraw without explanation. The ones you respect most deeply are those who remain composed when everyone else breaks. These aren't coincidences. They're the unwritten laws of human psychology that Machiavelli codified centuries ago that still govern every room you enter today. Power isn't shouted. It's whispered, or better yet, implied without a single word. When people can't read you, they can't replace you. If they can't predict you, they can't control you. This is the fundamental truth of silent power. The unexpressed becomes the unforgettable. Look at the loudest person in any room. They're showing everything. Their ambition, their insecurities, their triggers, their desire for validation. And the more they show, the easier it is to calculate how to manipulate them. But Machiavelli didn't teach exposure. He taught opacity. First principle, psychological presence outlasts physical presence. When you speak less, people fill the void with their own imagination. They project onto your silence their own fears, their own insecurities. They wonder what you're thinking, what you might do next. That wondering becomes obsession. That obsession becomes your invisible leash around their mind. They leave the interaction, but your silence follows them home. They replay it, analyze it, lose sleep over it. You become a psychological splinter they can't remove. Second principle, unreadability creates perceived threat. Not because you've threatened anything, but because humans fear what they can't predict. When someone raises their voice, you know exactly what you're dealing with. When someone sits in measured silence after being provoked, you have no idea what boundary you've just crossed. That uncertainty creates immediate psychological submission. Their nervous system registers your composure as a warning sign of hidden capability. And capability without visible limits becomes limitless in their mind. Third principle, selective silence creates unbearable tension. When you respond to 9 statements but deliberately ignore the 10th, you create an invisible wound. That unacknowledged point becomes a psychological loop they can't close. They'll wonder why you ignored it. Was it insignificant? Was it so significant you're calculating a response? Was it a boundary they shouldn't have crossed? That deliberate gap becomes the only thing they remember from the entire conversation. Fourth principle, the delayed response demonstrates superior position. When someone insults you and you respond immediately, you confirm their power to affect you. When you pause, maintain eye contact, and respond 3 seconds later, or tomorrow, or never, you communicate something devastating. I decide when and if you deserve my energy. The pause isn't hesitation. It's calculation, and calculation implies consequence. Remember, the master doesn't silence others. He silences himself, because in a world where everyone is fighting to be heard, the one who chooses to listen becomes the keeper of secrets. The one who speaks rarely becomes the voice that stops rooms. The one who refuses to explain becomes the presence they can't forget. The loudest statement you'll ever make won't come from your mouth. It will emanate from your body. Before you speak a single word, they've already read volumes from your posture, your movements, your eyes. Machiavelli observed how true princes commanded rooms before opening their mouths. Their bodies spoke first, establishing dominance without sound. Your physical presence either announces, approach with caution, or test me freely. There is no neutral. Eyes first. Most people break eye contact when tension rises. They glance down, look away, blink rapidly. These are submission signals that register subconsciously. When someone challenges you, hold their gaze without intensity, without emotion. Don't stare aggressively. Observe them calmly, as if studying an interesting but ultimately harmless specimen. The psychological impact is immediate. They feel seen, examined, perhaps even transparent. When you finally do look away, do it intentionally, not reactively. Look away because you've chosen to, not because you needed to. That distinction communicates volumes about who controls the interaction. Next, stillness. Nervous energy manifests physically, fidgeting, adjusting clothes, touching face, shifting weight. These movements telegraph insecurity. Machiavelli would remain perfectly still when others grew animated. Practice physical minimalism. No unnecessary movements. No reactive gestures. Let them flail while you remain composed. Each time they move, while you don't, the power dynamic shifts imperceptibly in your favor. They become the emotional ones. You become the centered one. They become the performers. You become the judge. Control space through position. Where you place yourself matters more than what you say once there. Don't huddle in corners or press against walls. Take center positions naturally without announcement. If standing, plant your feet shoulder-width apart, weight balanced. If seated, claim your space without apology, arms relaxed, not compressed. Never rush to fill empty chairs or crowd into occupied areas. The powerful never rush physically. They move deliberately, as if the world adjusts to their timeline, not the reverse. Master the power of the slight smile, not a full grin, which seeks approval, but the barely perceptible upward turn at one corner of your mouth. Deploy it when others would defend themselves, when criticized, when challenged, when insulted. That slight smile communicates something devastating. Your words can't touch me because I exist above your judgment. It creates immediate psychological discomfort in aggressors. They threw their hardest punch, and you found it amusing. Now they stand disarmed, wondering what invisible armor you possess. Remember, your body speaks a language older than words. When your physical presence contradicts your verbal message, people believe the body every time. The prince who claims strength while physically cowering fools no one. The prince who claims nothing while physically commanding space needs no declaration of power. His body has already established what his words would only diminish by trying to explain. Oh, you don't become a threat overnight. You build it daily through rituals of restraint that others mistake for weakness until it's too late. Machiavelli didn't just theorize power, he observed its daily practice. The princes who lasted weren't those with occasional brilliant speeches. They were those with consistent, unreadable presence. Your path to silent command begins with habitual behaviors that rewire how others perceive your psychological reach. Habit 1. Never be the first to react. When someone says something offensive, baiting, or triggering, wait. Everyone else rushes to respond, to defend, to get the last word. But not you. You blink. You pause. You let their energy bounce off your stillness. Why? Because every person who reacts first is always seen as the weaker one. But the one who waits? That's the one whose move everyone anticipates. Machiavelli would rather let someone believe he didn't hear them than respond before they finish talking. Because the pause is not hesitation. It's calculation. And people fear being calculated more than being confronted. Habit 2. Speak slower, say less, leave earlier. This sounds simple, but it rewires perception. Speaking slower draws control. Saying less shows value. Leaving early creates mystery. Most people speak to be understood, but power doesn't seek understanding. It seeks interpretation. You want people asking, what did he mean by that? Was he agreeing or warning me? Why did he leave when the energy shifted? Machiavelli made people nervous without raising his volume, because he never stayed long enough to be fully known. And what they can't define, they start to fear. Habit 3. Withdraw to reinforce presence. The most dominant people aren't always present, but when they are, everyone feels it. Why? Because they don't overpeer. You need to leave social spaces, chats, arguments, even meetings before your presence becomes normalized. The dog is always there. The wolf appears, then vanishes. And when the wolf vanishes, everyone asks where he went. This is how Machiavelli trained power. Through scarcity. Be the one they notice is gone, not the one they expect to stay. Habit 4. Never over-explain your moves. Explaining makes sense to you. You want to be clear, honest, understood. But Machiavelli knew. Every explanation is a subtraction from power. You said no? Say no. You changed your mind? Let be changed. You walked away? Stay gone. No reasoning. No emotional wrapping. No justifying your boundaries. Because once you start explaining, you start defending. And once you start defending, you're no longer commanding. You're negotiating. And a threat never negotiates. Habit 5. Maintain emotional neutrality in social games. You'll notice how people constantly test your emotional center. They'll say provocative things to see if you'll correct them. Joke about your silence to get you to talk. Flirt, poke, or guilt trip just to break your neutrality. Why? Because they can feel it, that unreadable energy, and they're afraid of it. They try to crack it because if they can't, they'll have to assume you're stronger than they are. Let them assume. Smile. Observe. Withdraw. Because the more they try to read you, the more power you gain. These aren't strategies you deploy occasionally. They're daily practices that rewire your neural pathways until restraint becomes your default setting. Machiavelli didn't just act powerful. He trained rituals of restraint, movements of control, a daily posture that whispered, "You don't know what I'm capable of, and you never will. But if you cross me, you might find out." Obsession isn't created by availability. It's created by distance. People don't obsess over what they fully understand. They obsess over what felt close, but never fully belonged to them. You give them a moment of eye contact, a word that cuts deeper than it should. Then you vanish. That absence becomes a psychological loop they can't close. Strategy 1. Don't give them what they expect. Most people reveal everything immediately. You? Smile less. Speak slowly. Create a contrast so sharp it forces them to recalibrate around you. Not because you demanded it, but because your energy shifted the dynamic. The unexplained commands more attention than the obvious. Strategy 2. Let them project, then withhold. People will try to label you. Let them. Their imagination becomes your PR team. When you provide incomplete information, they complete it with their own fears and respect. Let their minds build you into something larger than you could ever claim to be. Strategy 3. Leave them mid-sentence. End conversations slightly before they feel finished. Disappear slightly before they feel ready. That incompleteness becomes a hook they can't remove. They'll replay the moment, trying to finish what you started. That's how presence becomes obsession. Strategy 4. Protect your inner world. Give hints, never headlines. The moment someone fully knows your why, they start plotting your how. When your inner world feels like a fortress, they stop knocking and start wondering. That wondering becomes power. The unreadable cannot be cornered. Once they realize they'll never fully understand you, they give up trying to control you. And what's unpredictable becomes untouchable. The loud ones get noticed. The quiet ones get remembered. Machiavelli didn't just want to command people in the moment. He wanted to live in their heads long after he left the room. Because true power isn't about dominance. It's about presence that stays after your absence. Here's the irony. Loud people are remembered in the moment. Still people are remembered in the memory. Because after you leave a room, people replay what they can't define. Why didn't he say anything? Was he testing us? What did that silence mean? They can't move on because you never gave them closure. And when people can't close the file, they reread it forever. That's how threats are born. Not from action, but from potential. You don't have to say a word to dominate a room. Because most power isn't spoken. It's signaled through posture, through presence, through what you don't do when everyone else is trying to be seen. You're not just a person. You're a consequence. Once people experience your detachment, your withdrawal, your refusal to chase, they start associating your silence with a shift in their world. When you stop replying, they reflect. When you say less, they overthink. When you don't show up, they notice. Now your absence becomes a mirror. Build the wolf, kill the dog. There's a reason videos like this are going viral. Because everyone feels the pain of being the emotional dog. Loyal even when betrayed. Friendly even when mocked. Obedient even when ignored. And everyone wants to become the wolf. But what they don't realize is this. The wolf doesn't bark. He simply watches. And when he moves, no one is ready. That's who you must become. You don't bark. You don't explain. You don't beg. You calculate. You withhold. You let others feel the chill of your presence without ever raising your tone. The unforgettable are often